Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Okie doke. Hello. Welcome. Yeah, it's the day after the day that we just as soon forget. Unbelievable. It's also a Tuesday in April, the 16th, in fact. And my sister Susan is joining us from St. Louis. Hi, Suze.
Hi. I'm trying to think how many times I've done this with you where we've thought, oh, my God.
Where we're talking about something horrific, I know.
Well, where we've been talking about something horrific.
Right. I was thinking that, too. Got off the bus. I'm walking down the sidewalk and sort of heavy, feeling heavy, and I'm thinking, you know, there's never, I mean, you just never know what's there to say, I mean, at this point. I just want to point something out really nice for people living here in Pittsburgh today. This is the kind of day in Pittsburgh where I'm looking at sun and I'm looking at black clouds, both sharing the sky. And invariably on those kind of days, there'll be a rainbow or two, because we got a lot of rain around, and we do have the sun exerting itself as well. So I'm spending the day looking for a rainbow. That's what I'm doing. Well, so we awoke, and not much had changed in terms of information available.
No, and I think everybody best settle down, because
what else is there to do?
This is painstaking and very, it's only lucky if they get right to it. I mean,
right.
I think the fact that it took them a few years to find the guy from the Olympic Village, it might be more reasonable.
Well, I hope, unlike that case, that we don't tar and feather some innocent soul, which is what we did in that case.
Right. Well, and what they're trying not to do to this
Saudi national.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know much at this point, or if at least we don't in the public. Maybe the police know more than they're saying, but or the FBI, which I guess is in charge. But yeah, so now we get to do what we're very bad at, which is waiting. Mm-hmm. And that's that. There's so many horrific stories. I mean, the idea that there could have been somebody who was finishing that race,
and then they get their legs blown off.
Right. I mean, it's particularly appalling that this should have been directed at runners, and there's all these lost limbs.
And also just aimed at, the common people, because the timing of it allowed all of the world-class athletes to get through.
Right. So it's just the regular guys in the weekend warriors.
Right. Mostly people running for charity and stuff.
Well, and just for a personal best, right?
For
something like that,
right.
Like all my friends who've ever done this. I came upon a story this morning that's just unbelievable. There's two brothers. Did you hear about them? Two brothers watching it together. Each one lost a leg. We've got a caller. Hello?
Hello, Lynn. George Ramon.
Hi, George.
Hi. Just wanted to get a comment here on this. The situation up there is that all the officials that come out, and they're talking about the investigation, everything like that. And the thing that struck me was the acting head of the ATF spoke this morning on the radio.
Oh, you're going to say
and
that
it struck me that it has been like 4 years now that we have not had a full head, appointed by the Congress for the ATF.
That's right.
Now, the ATF took on the responsibility some time ago, like 10 years ago, for bombs also. In fact, I think they just recently changed their name to ATFB or something. And they're responsible for bombs also. And here we are, a Congress sitting on its hands in a national emergency like this.
Yeah, well, they're doing more
not having a full-time head.
They're doing more than sitting on their hands. The Congress has actively prevented the Obama administration from having anyone to head the ATF.
Particularly the United States Senate.
Well,
yes, they have put in anonymous blocks to appointing a new ATF head.
Yeah.
And I would, if I were the White House, I would be jamming this down their throat right now. This is equivalent to the executive not appointing the chief of the Air Force or of any of the military. I mean, I think that's how serious this is. ATF is the group that handles firearms and bombs, and without a chief in charge, I think is just totally embarrassing for this government.
Well,
and is a smack in the face of the people out there that are being killed and maimed by these actions.
Okay.
I just had to put that in there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. It's a point well taken. Right. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's yet another example of how this strategy of hobbling government is so anti the people. I mean, the only people that you always pay the price for these games are us.
Yeah. Well, sure, because ultimately, in the republic we live in, it's the government is us, right?
Yeah, I'd like to point out that increasingly the leading cause of death for people under the age of 10 in the United States is either bomb or machine gun.
What?
Well, I mean, it's getting very dangerous to be a small child in the United States.
Well, they don't die from bombs.
Well, one did yesterday.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. You're saying the victims, like with Sandy Hook, and in this case, yes. I mean, if you target schools, children are going to die, and if you target these sort of
family events,
children are going to die. And this is by definition terrorism. That's what terrorism does. It tries to make you feel so unsafe that you alter your way of living and you live in fear. So I don't know. We got another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. We don't do enough prevention with fires. We don't do enough prevention with terrorism. It's always all these SWAT teams and ambulance, firemen, policemen. They're at the scene, but to prevent that, we don't do a whole lot for that. And a terrible tragedy happened. But we had no problem going into Iraq and killing kids in the cities there. So I'm sorry. This country is full of shit. Goodbye.
Whoa. I usually get a kick out of him. I didn't get a kick out of that.
No.
I don't know how you prevent. How do you prevent one person?
I mean, and that's something that people don't get when you sit on school boards and parents come in and demand that you keep the school safe. Well, the fact of the matter is there's no good way to guarantee you can't. It's impossible. You cannot prevent everything. You can try, you can do your best, but it just doesn't work.
You know, we live in a relatively safe, God knows, society, and a relatively safe country, as we definitely have our share of violence here, but relatively, I'm saying. And people, I think, are used to feeling like they should be safe all the time. And the fact is that by definition, being alive is not safe. Being alive is not safe. Things happen. You know, the old bumper sticker you see. Shit happens. Right. Stuff happens. And the only way to live in a totally secured society would be to live in something that resembles North Korea. Seriously. If you want the freedom of movement and the sense of, well, if you want life like we recognize it, you're not going to have total security. And there's no way to have it. No one can promise you that ever. And I swear, I do not want to live in a country that is scared
of its own shadow,
or obsessive about security. I don't want to. I thought we overreacted in many respects to 9/11 in this way. And if this does the same thing, God help us.
Well, we have to find out, who it is first.
Right. Well, domestic or international, we don't know. We all can have our guesses. My guess is domestic, but why?
Why does it feel so like domestic to everybody? It just feels domestic. It feels like some lone crackpot loon.
Well, because we've been there before. I mean, we have.
Because if we go with history, that's exactly what it's.
Well, and also given the day, I mean, the fact that this was Patriots' Day, the fact that this was a sort of iconic, not that I recognized it, an iconic day in history, April 19th.
Yeah, it seems. That was my first thought. It seemed like an anti-government.
Well, yeah, April 19th was Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
And Timothy McVeigh obviously was making a statement and a political statement by doing so. Columbine was also on this same date. So you have Oklahoma City, you have Columbine, you have the Virginia Tech massacre. So in the world of lunatics, that date is a red letter date.
Well, and it's tax day to boot. I mean,
it's like
right. It's like a sign.
Yeah. So I think anybody who's thinking, I bet this is, has reason to say that. But on the other hand, we don't know.
On the other hand, that's a great cover for anybody else.
That's true.
But those anybody else's usually would have claimed credit by now.
Right. Domestic terrorists don't claim credit because they're on the lam and they don't want to, draw any attention. International terrorists tend to, although they take credit for things they didn't even do. Ansel writes, like so many, I spent the evening watching the terrible images from Boston. I noticed, however, that all of the images I saw came from the bomb near the finish line. I don't recall any pictures from the second bomb.
There was one on later in the night on MSNBC. They find Rachel Maddow had one from someone that sent one in late.
Well, it's odd though, and Ansel also says I don't recall anyone talking about victims at the second bomb site either. And I had heard that they believed that the second bomb was actually a more powerful bomb. And it seems like all of the carnage, it's true. I mean, all that we see is there at the first bomb site, the finish line. in a day and age of cell phones and everybody videotaping, there's no way there's not video of that second bombing.
Well, as I said, I did see one last night.
Okay.
But someone, of some personal video. I think the reason is because the cameras were all
on the finish line. Yeah.
At the finish line, so that was more readily available. That's what they went with. But they are amassing film of all those other things.
Here's where it gets down to forensics. I mean, you realize that people who are trained to do so will be looking at video and at every frame for how long. All that information will be fed in. It's amazing how I can't imagine they won't find this person.
Well, if you have
given
to take
all
into
the
account
video.
all of the cameras, all the security cameras on all those buildings,
right, exactly,
that have pictures of everybody coming and going. I mean, that's why they're looking for a Penske truck. They're hard to find.
They're all over the place.
Right.
So, I got a feeling domestic, but my feeling is worth absolutely
it doesn't mean anything.
Nothing. But Susan, this horrible story, a woman named Liz Norden had just finished hauling her groceries into her Boston home Monday afternoon when her cell phone rang. It was her 31-year-old son. "Mom, I'm hurt real bad." He was in an ambulance being rushed to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. It was her second boy who had gone with his older brother to watch a friend run in the marathon. His brother had been next to him, but he didn't know where he was now. This poor woman then raced all over the place, found both her sons. They were at different hospitals, and both had lost a leg.
Just awful.
Have you heard about the guy? You can see him in some of the videos. He was racing a guy who had his legs blown off. He was racing him past, trying to get him to an ambulance. He also is seen in a cowboy hat trying to help the people get those, move the barricades that were blown down, the fences, trying to get to the victims. And he was identified as a man, and I don't have his name in front of me here, whose son was killed. He's an immigrant from Costa Rica. His son was killed in 2004 in Iraq.
Oh, he was the guy that was running with his son's boots?
No, he wasn't running, I don't think.
Okay.
But when his son was killed, he got a bunch of gasoline or something. He tried to kill himself. He blew up a van that he was sitting in or something. He lived. Then he became a peace activist. Then his other son, mourning his older brother, killed himself. This guy was at the marathon and right there when it happened. And he just dove in to help. And I don't know. I was reading some tweets, people saying whatever his name is, it's a Hispanic name, and I don't remember it. Should never have to buy a drink in this town again. A guy who had known such unbelievable tragedy himself, and then there he is again. Yike. So some of the quotes, that you see from people who were right there are just, this was hell. Here's a state trooper and former Marine who was running in the marathon, and he had just finished, and he said, "These runners, they just finished, and they don't have legs now. So many of them. There are so many people without legs. It's all blood. There's blood everywhere. I tied at least 5 or 6 legs with tourniquets. And imagine finishing a marathon. You can barely stand. And a lot of these guys who finished the marathon ended up doing triage.
Right.
You finish a marathon, and you have the capacity to deal with that. Here's a 27-year-old woman, steps away from the finish line. She saw bodies flying out into the street. She saw a couple of children who appeared lifeless. She saw people without legs. When the bodies landed around me, I thought, am I burning? Maybe I'm burning, and I don't feel it. If I blow up, I just hope I won't feel it. God almighty. So. Awful. April 19th, Patriot Day. It was also the date that saw the Waco and that's one of the reasons it resonates with the right-wingers too, because that's when Janet Reno sent those, the feds in to flush out David Koresh, and it turned into that horrific conflagration. So that's another reason. Well, that must have come before, was that before Oklahoma City? So you had Waco.
Yeah.
Then you had Oklahoma City commemorating it. Then you had Columbine. And then you had Virginia Tech. Is that the timeline? Maybe. Who can keep it straight? But I guess now I'll remember that April 19th is a date
your
we
head
should.
Down day.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, tell you what, let's take a little break. When we come back, if you guys have anything else you want to add to this discussion, feel free. Otherwise, we will move on. Their life continues, as it always does.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Go to barkbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% for Nordstrom gift cards. Supplies limited. barkbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. barkbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, we're back again. Supreme Court was in session yesterday and heard a interesting case, and I'm glad to see that the people who were listening to the oral arguments all seem to feel that the justices were of one mind in this case, and it's the same mind I have, so I'm glad to hear it. This has to do with the patenting,
Of genes.
Of genes. And we're talking about GENES. The case involved a company, a genetics company called Myriad, who in fact had isolated 2 genes that predispose women to have breast cancer. This is that, I think it's called BRCA1 and BRCA. Right, BRCA1 and BRCA2. And this company then acquired patents. There's a lot of patents, thousands of patents have been given to specific human genes. And they had the patents to these isolated genes. And consequently, because they owned the genes, they then controlled all research involving them. And if a woman, let's say, wanted to know, do I have that gene? If she
was held hostage to their pricing structure.
That is correct. If she wanted to be tested for it, then she had to pay them to find out if, in fact, she had the gene that causes breast cancer. So the Supreme Court's now going to decide whether or not you can, in fact, essentially own a human gene. There have already been, as I said, over 4,000 such patents issued in this country. And they said the conservative justices and the liberal justices all seemed to be, the McClatchy reporting it uses the verb recoiled.
Well, it's hard to find, an argument that says that a company can own a part of your body. All rights to a part of your body, of something that occurs in nature. Just because they happen to notice it doesn't mean that they own it.
I agree. So
that's basically the argument, that if you haven't fundamentally changed something and created something,
just because you found it doesn't mean you own
it. You can't lay claim to it.
Right. And Chief Justice Roberts said to the attorney for Myriad, you're just snipping, you're just snipping something out. You don't have anything new. You have something that is a part of something that existed previous to your intervention. You didn't make it. And so the good news is I think it sounds like they're going to say you can't get rid of this.
Well,
so would that then wipe out? Susan, would that wipe out the patents that have been given?
Yeah, unless they can. It doesn't wipe out a therapy that they create or a test that they create, but it does allow competition.
And it seems to me that with all this, the stuff that's going on in agribusiness, where they're owning seeds and they're owning, maybe that's part of this too? I don't know.
Well, no. If you're owning, the only way they own the seed is if they have genetically modified it. Okay. Now they have created something different, and that is the argument of the people against them. Oh my God, you're creating monster corn.
Well. The fact is that with technology, the legal system and our ethical system, our every system is always playing catch up.
The law hasn't kept up, and you have this happening as well in copyright areas. So that if you buy a book, you once you own the book, you can lend it, you can resell it, you can do whatever you want with it.
Right.
But when you download a book, you have nothing except that which is under your name existing someplace, and you have no rights that go with it other than the right to read it and reread it. And there are services now that are setting up ways for you to resell your ebooks, and now the copyright people are coming in and saying, oh, no. And so now we have to argue what you buy when you buy an ebook, and is that explicit, and why doesn't it come with the rights? Why isn't the price break simply the cost of materials and handling and distribution?
Oh my gosh! Well, that brings
it's
very interesting.
It's sort of fun. Just when you think, well, law's boring, there isn't anything, then a whole new crop of issues comes up, and you have to figure it out according to established legal principles, and it becomes very interesting all over again.
Well, this guy named Ray Kurzweil. Do you know him? He's a great thinker, the Wall Street Journal said he's the closest thing to Thomas Edison of our time. He's a great mind, let's put it that way. And he says this, and it's so true, and it has to do with, he says, we human beings are wired to expect linear change in our world. You know, we're used to, we march forward, things change, we deal with it, things change, we deal with it, things change. But guess what? That has now changed. It ain't linear. It ain't linear. It is now exponential. And so change now is like mushroom cloud growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And that
it gives news you lose a whole new meaning.
That's right. The acceleration is such, and it will only continue because it's driven by technology. It'll only continue apace, and as human beings, we struggle to stay on top of it. And I was lecturing some of my old lady friends the other day, saying, it is an absurdity not to try to keep at least in a somewhat comfortable state with whatever's going on. You know, so many older people just say, oh, I can't. I don't have a computer, or I'm not getting a cell phone, or I won't do this or that. Well, then, assuming you're not going to drop dead tomorrow, and assuming you'll be alive in 20 years, and you hope you are, then you're going to be essentially like an illiterate. Why would you choose to do that? You've got to stay somewhat in touch. Never before.
Our brother, who is not an Apple fan at all, for some reason succumbed and bought an iPhone.
Yeah.
Which he was hating while he was taking pictures and trying out Siri. And now every time I talk to him, it's a thank God for this iPhone because I can blah, or thank God for this iPhone.
I can this, I can that, I can blah, blah,
blah.
So, I know.
Setting up rules just holds you back.
Right. Henry writes, the nuts were out in full force yesterday, twisting the Boston event. Oh, I could not have listened to that. How could you listen? On one talk show, Henry writes, I hear someone say that things like this wouldn't happen if the country would address mental health issues. And then they asked if we needed legislation to control bomb-making materials. Okay, he says this was obviously a gun nut who is now trying to turn the attention to let's control bomb-making materials. Like what? Like fertilizer? Like ball bearings?
No, we knew that was going to happen. No, we have to ban nuts and bolts. I mean, I guarantee you will see this, and, if it isn't already out there, they'll be screaming, ban nuts and bolts.
I heard somebody else blaming the president for this and openly wondering if the president would deny the event, refuse to call it terrorism, and blame it on a YouTube video. What is wrong with these people? Actually, the president in his initial statement did not use the word terrorism, and that sent the people into a real kerfuffle. And they were saying, I don't understand how... and frankly, I don't understand why you don't call it terror. Of course it's terrorism. It is by definition terrorism. Whether the terrorist is one of us or one of them, it doesn't make any difference. It's still terrorism.
Well, what do we care what he calls it?
I know, but why? You do wonder, why not just call it that? Or is there now a political definition of terror?
Apparently.
What? Of course it's terrorism. So if he doesn't say the word, that's something? Oh, and
if he does say the word, he's rushing to judgment.
And there's someone else, some nutcase who the right-wingers love, who I think at one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, at one of the news conferences held yesterday by Governor Patrick of Massachusetts and the other guys, this guy, he got the first question in, and his question was, is this a shadow? What are they? There's a term. In other words, is this, he asked if the government did this.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So that they could control us more. That these are the same people who said that Sandy Hook was staged and the Aurora Theater thing was one of these events. And there's a whole bunch of people who believe that because these happened with the Obama administration in the White House, that these are events that he's done. No, that they've done so that they can take everybody's guns away and take their freedoms away and create a... And some guy actually, he got into that news conference, and the first question was essentially that to Governor Patrick, and Patrick just said no and, moved on. I forget the term. I mean, you have to be one of these nutcases to know. You have to live in that other universe. God. So...
It would have been nice if he had said no and you're an idiot.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So, I don't think I have anything else to say about that, although here's another little, I have to tell you, there's a bunch, as if the news
I
today...
I stopped reading them. I just don't have the stomach for it.
No, as if the news isn't depressing enough. This really bummed me out because just yesterday I said to somebody, I don't think I said it on air, that I think I'm going to like this Pope.
Oh, yeah.
I said it to you, Jess?
Yeah, before the show.
Oh, before the show. Yeah. I'm going to like this new Pope. That's what I said. And I still might in terms of some aspects of his papacy.
There's going to be some things you're going to have a hard time
Well,
with.
listen to this. It already has happened.
Some things you might like.
Yeah, but it's already happened. And this really upsets me. Says here that Pope Francis has reaffirmed the reprimand of American nuns issued by Pope Benedict.
Oh, no.
And he has endorsed Benedict's plan to have 3 bishops supervise an overhaul of the nation's largest umbrella group of American nuns. So he's going right along with it.
Well, my advice to that umbrella group, the largest association, is you let those bishops handle it, and then you form yourselves a new group.
Yeah, well...
You know
what? You remember what the charge against them was? The charge against the American nuns. Well, here I have the exact words. Wait in this. It's even better than that. The group is tinged with feminist influences and focused too much on ending social and economic injustice and not enough on stopping abortion. So their crime is working too hard to stem social and economic injustice.
Yeah, the horror.
What an outrage. And apparently, Susan, another charge is they permitted people at their meetings to speak in a way that questioned church doctrine. So, unfortunately, Pope Francis has agreed that this is egregious activity.
That's that is surprising, I have to say, because, one of the things that one...
He was big on social, yes. Yeah.
Right, his caring about exactly those issues.
I know. Damn it. I know a lot of these nuns. They are the most wondrous beings in the universe. I was just with 3 of them the other day. We showed up at a Duquesne Law School class on immigration law, and we showed them the video we had made and talked about it. And these nuns are out of this world wonderful. Out of this world. We got a caller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, ladies. This is Joe P.
Okay. Hi.
I'm calling in support of nuns, and this is a little weird, but I was on Bourbon Street with my mom and Sister Nag from Little Sisters of the Poor, and that was pretty wild. We went to see the Jazz Preservation Society.
Oh.
It was a lot of fun. Sister Nag was pretty cool. I didn't find out till way later, like earlier that day, before we went down to Bourbon Street, she was in the 9th Ward, and there was a guy with a gun that was going to shoot somebody, and she went there. Like, the cops couldn't approach the place, and she went there and, like, talked this guy out, walked him out, got the gun off him and everything. Stuff that sisters do and nuns do is just awesome.
I agree. I absolutely agree. They are amazing. They are the best of the church, without a doubt.
Why? Well,
Man, you're on Bourbon Street with a nun? Jeez. That's weird. I'm telling you, nuns are fun.
Yes, they are.
They're brave, and they'll whatever. They'll keep on keeping on.
Right. Okay.
Thank you
ladies.
so
Bye.
much. Yes. Oh, and Ronald, thank you, has told me what the term is I was looking for. The term of this, that the guy used in questioning Governor Deval Patrick yesterday was false flag. That's what they call it, a false flag event. Was this a false flag?
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Yeah, we blew up the Boston Marathon to make the president look good.
Now, here's part of what goes, some things that get said in the aftermath of these things do annoy me, and I shouldn't probably even say this, but I'm going to. Millions of people have been saying how amazing Bostonians were, or Americans are, in that
they rushed in because they did what human beings do.
Exactly. They ran toward the victims instead of away for their own lives. Well, listen. In every situation like this, there are those who run toward and those who run away.
And it's pure instinct.
Pure instinct, and also, it's not about Americans.
It's about people.
In all these horrific bombings that happen every 2 seconds in Iraq, there are people there.
People aren't running to help victims.
Who
of course
run
they
in.
are. Wherever this happens, people run.
I can't stand that when people all of a sudden ascribe to us.
Because they have nothing else to say. They insist on being on the air 24 hours a day with the same pictures running in front of you. And what are they going to say? Look at how wondrous. People are helping people. And I know that he's a Pittsburgh icon and all that, but
who?
The Mr. Rogers.
Oh, the Mr. Rogers thing
is point.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh.
You're sick of it. Run toward the helpers. Right. There's always things, I know. There's always the people who bring up the usual. And here's another one that's got me annoyed. I've now seen a lot of tweets around here. The Pittsburgh Marathon's coming up. So I've now seen tweets that suggest that anybody who runs in the Pittsburgh Marathon now is courageous. And is not letting terrorists stop them.
Maybe they just want to run the marathon.
Yeah. The idea that because this happened there, now, I mean, as if saying after 9/11, if you went up in a building taller than 8 stories, you're heroic. Or if you went out in public. I mean, come on. I know they all, they run out of things to say. But, God, there's some things that just are so, to me, so stupid and so cloying and so, and when they try to localize it, let's bring it home. It drives me crazy. It's why I love the fact that I'm not in the news business.
Everybody wants everybody to be a hero. Everybody's a hero all the time, and mostly it's just people walking through their lives, doing what they do.
That is correct.
And with by the way, extraordinarily little choice in the matter. You find yourself where you find yourself, and you deal with it as you deal with it. And in many cases like these, it is pure instinct.
It is. It's pure instinct.
And the person that runs toward is certainly more helpful, but is no necessarily ethically better than the person whose instinct is to run.
No, that's
That's
reptilian brain kicking in.
Fine.
Yeah. There's trouble here. I'm getting the hell out of here. Yeah, right. But thank God there are these people too who are helpers by nature, and I just that's just true.
Listen, and you don't know that the people that whose instinct was to run didn't run, get safe, ascertain, and then go back in to see what they could do.
You also don't know if they weren't running to find their loved ones or whatever.
Right. You don't know.
No, I don't know anything. So, whatever. Oh, God. Hey, I got to take a break.
It's American exceptionalism.
I know. Hey, isn't it heroic of me? I'm not letting the terrorists... I came down and did the show today.
You did. I think it's heroic. You got on a bus even.
I did. I'm telling you. I am the very epitome of a heroic American. We'll take a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
I don't believe it. My savings are gone.
Okay, think. Where'd you have them last?
I was home, then I spent them on that vacation in this tiny suit of armor. Now they're gone.
Weird.
Weird? Not really. Not saving now means no money later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free ideas on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Oh, I broke his little gauntlet.
Oh, no.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
This week's Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for the latest on the upcoming mayoral election. Plus, Joshua Bell, Artie Lang, Joey Bada, and Southside Meat Pies. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
All right, listen, I hate to do this to y'all, but this has to get mentioned. There's another big story out today that is not getting the attention. It's too bad, how something comes out on a day like this when all attention is on another story. But there was a nonpartisan independent review commission set up to determine whether or not the United States engaged in torture after 9/11. They have come out with a 577-page report. And just so you know, again, it's truly nonpartisan. 2 former members of Congress headed this. One, Asa Hutchinson, who is very much of a Republican. He was in the Bush administration. He was the head of DEA. And I think then he took on some other position, and also a former Democratic representative, James Jones, who then became, ambassador to Mexico or something. They have been working and had a lot of other people. This is truly a nonpartisan act. And here's what they say. It is indisputable that the United States engaged in the practice of torture and that the nation's highest officials bore ultimate responsibility. And they said that while brutality has occurred in every American war, there never before had been, and this is the quote, the kind of considered and detailed discussions that occurred after 9/11 directly involving a president and his top advisors on the wisdom, propriety, and legality of inflicting pain and torment on detainees in American custody. And they go on to say that this damaged the standing of the nation, reduced our capacity to convey moral censure when necessary, and potentially increased the danger to U.S. military personnel taken captive. They also talked about the attorneys in the executive branch twisting themselves into acrobatic advice to justify brutal interrogations, and also the ethical compromises of medical professionals who help direct and monitor the torture. It also, this is fascinating, it reveals that there was a very strenuous debate inside the Red Cross over whether it should speak out about American abuses. And those who wanted the American Red Cross to do so lost the fight. And so the Red Cross, which could have exposed this earlier, chose not to. One of the authors of the report said, simply put, America lost its compass. And Asa Hutchinson, who, as I said, was in the Bush administration, said, this took a lot of convincing for me. But after 2 years of research, he said, I have no doubts about what we did. He says this has not been an easy inquiry for me because I know so many of the players. But you have to learn from history. It's incredibly important to have an accurate account. And he said the United States has a historic and unique character, and part of that character is we do not torture. Well, unfortunately, we do.
Apparently we do.
We do. But they're saying it had never risen to this level.
No, and they
condoned by
that there is no justification,
none.
And that needed to be said. That I think their hearts were heavy, that they needed to confirm that this happened, it shouldn't have happened, and there was no justification. It yielded nothing.
Well, I'm sure this thing will be available to us all, but according to the press account I have, as I said, it's over 500 pages long, but they said there's a 22-page appendix that is simply a legal and historical analysis that explains why the task force had to conclude that what we did was flat-out torture. And it's because they offer up dozens of legal cases in which similar treatment was prosecuted in the United States or was denounced by us as torture when used by other countries. So we denounced as torture that which we ourselves did, and all of a sudden when we were doing it, we said it wasn't torture. And they make it all very, very clear. As I said, it's unfortunate that this came out when nobody's paying any attention. And with somebody like an Asa Hutchinson in the driver's seat, it has a lot of that. I mean, that you cannot pretend this is a bunch of liberals saying this.
No, but you can't ignore it.
Joseph writes, you hit the nail on the head. You are expressing exactly what I've been discussing with a coworker this morning. The fact that any time something tragic happens in this country, the media starts up with, could it happen here? Sending all the fearmongers into an absolute tizzy. I wonder if the media will continue their cloying coverage and refer to yesterday's events as 4/15, a la 9/11. I doubt it, but the cloying coverage is just beginning. Because now we go into, learning the victims. And, I mean, there's no way that can be anything but heart-wrenching, but the poor victims, it's one thing to, lose a limb. It's another thing to now be the focus of the media hordes wanting to exploit you, even though that's not how they would see it, but that's what the demand will be now. A poor little boy who is dead was there to watch his dad run the marathon. His mother and his older sibling are both hospitalized. Now, if you were the dad in that case, do you carry guilt if I hadn't been running?
No.
Yes, you do. You don't think?
No. I mean, how can you?
That's what he will do. If I weren't running, he wouldn't have been there. I don't know. That's what people do to torture themselves. That's, survivor guilt and your little boy. Jesus. God. Okay, here's something totally different. Suze.
Yeah.
It's another unforeseen consequence of global warming, and it is going to possibly affect me because I'm planning on flying across the Atlantic Ocean this summer. Did you see this thing?
Yeah, Dramamine.
Dramamine. Turns out global warming, right, means that there are rising levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and that, well, it's known, will increase air turbulence over the North Atlantic by, this is amazing, 170%? Yeah. So what they're saying is that the airlines, airplanes avoid turbulence. They know where it is, and so they go around. They go around, they this and that, and they're saying so that the airlines it'll take longer because they'll take more circuitous routes. They'll weave in and out, and because it takes longer, they will burn more fuel, which, of course, will add more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere.
And more cost to your ticket.
Yeah. So.
And who wants to stay there longer anyway?
Well, because, they'll have to fly around it, so it won't be a straight line anymore. It's always something.
And it's not like you want to take a boat these days.
Well, no, but you don't want to take one of those god-awful floating monstrosities.
Right, well, we've never liked the looks of them, but now we have good reason. I do not understand.
Why anyone? Would anyone buy a ticket on one of those things now?
I mean, if you don't get, it was bad enough that for years all that happened is you got awful stomach viruses.
Right, you got, or
what is it, robovirus or something?
Something, and you also, I mean, what? You lie around and you eat all day and night, and you get.
You pretend like you're on land.
What's the point?
You do all the things that you would want to do on land.
Mm-hmm.
And then you dock and you go to land for a minute, and then you get back on the boat. But all the food is included.
But there's no, okay, it used to be that if you took those aren't cruisers, those are ocean liners. Ocean liners are sleeker vessels that have
Well, no, they probably look exactly, the boats look different now.
So they're always going to look like that god-awful thing? I mean, those big things?
Yeah.
Well, they're disgusting looking. And you remember when we were in France and you're like driving up on the foothills of the Alps and you look down into like a beautiful cove. You're from way on high, and there's little fishing boats, and it's so picturesque you could die. And then sitting in the midst of it, looking like this, so out of scale, so hideous, ugly, it'd be one of these ships.
Yeah.
I think they should be...
And it would just ruin everything.
Everything. They should be banned simply on aesthetic grounds. They're too big. They're too ugly. And you know what?
Clearly, they're too ill-maintained, and they're dangerous because they flop over because the captain's drunk and he's entertaining his paramour, or you know, I mean...
Or they, you know what else they do? You know what else they do? They pollute.
They pollute like crazy.
They throw all that crap into the ocean. They're not regulated. Ugh. I hope Carnival Cruise Lines goes down.
They're also, like, unsafe. I mean, you know, there's constantly stories of people going overboard or being killed. Or, you know, and no one knows what happened.
No, because it's...
Yeah, I mean, really, I can't imagine what makes people go, gee, let's take a cruise.
Hey, I want to go on one of those Carnival Cruise Lines. Why? Why? You want to end up on the news as a survivor of something? Jeez. No, awful. There's got to be a better way if you want to get out on the water and end up in a little semi-exotic locale.
Oh, I'm telling you, you could rent a nice little place, you know, anywhere on a beach in Florida and save yourself a ton of money. You might have to cook a meal or two in your very own kitchen, but it would be lovely.
Yes, it would. Yeah. Sounds like
I mean, it's not like those things are cheap.
They aren't, huh? Even though you're packed in like a... Oh, God, I can't imagine. Now, I think it's different from, like, they've got these smaller ships that, like, go into... Don't they have... Like, when you take an Alaskan cruise, isn't that a smaller ship?
They're smaller, yeah. But they still look exactly the same.
They do?
Because when I was in Vancouver, they come in, and, you know, it's like, oh, it's ship day, you know, and everybody that's in Vancouver hides.
God, that's too bad. Ships used to be beautiful. Well, they used to be beautiful looking, sleek, and there was something just sort of incredible about them. But these things
all of those boats
these
that
things
you're
look
thinking
like
of are now moored in our museums and restaurants and things.
No, these things, you know, like look like stink bugs. I'm sorry, that wouldn't hold up, but.
But I get your meaning.
Well, Suze?
How are the stink bugs doing with the cold spring? Is it like making them maybe die or anything?
It ain't that cold. They're out. They've mostly decamped from our homes and are now out. I had one sitting next to me on a chair outside yesterday, and I spared his life. Why, I don't know, but I did. There's something so docile about them that you almost feel guilty sometimes killing them, because unlike an insect that'll try to get away from you, they do not.
They're just sitting with you.
I know. And then if you pick them up, they just sit there. They don't. And when you throw them in the toilet, they just sit there. They just they absolutely don't. And, you know, you feel they're pacifists. And there's some guilt in killing a pacifist. But not enough.
Well, you spared him.
Okay, so that's it, Suze.
Bye.
You have a good day there in St. Louis. And
I
your
will.
damn Cardinals, didn't they beat us?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Come on. They'll probably beat us again tonight, and then they'll beat us on Wednesday. Hell with you.
Early. We're notoriously uneven.
Well, uneven is certainly a word that could apply to us, too, so we'll see. All right, well, I'm not wishing your team the best, but I'm wishing you the best.
Yeah. May the better team win today.
No, because that's the Cardinals. No. All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. And as for the rest of you, goodbye. Potter tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.